Colleagues, we are at a defining moment for Caribbean tourism. While we have achieved remarkable success in rebuilding and strengthening the sector, we must now face the deepening of the structures, particularly the supply side, that underpins sustainability and enables resilience. For too long, our focus has been disproportionately weighed towards arrivals, occupancy, and expenditure. And I want to emphasize that that is critical, because that creates the critical mass that enables us to drive the demand for which the supplies that we're talking about today underpins. Tourism is driven largely by consumption. And if we have the numbers, then the consumption will escalate. And as the consumption escalates, the demand escalates, and the requirement for supplies escalates equally. And so that's the essence of this discussion this morning. How do we build capacity to absorb the demand that tourism brings? So while these remain important indicators, as I said, they do not fully capture the developmental potential of tourism. What we must now prioritize is the extent to which tourism stimulates production, strengthens regional value chains, and retains wealth within our economies. And some of us are frightened by the statistics which indicate that in some instances less than 20% of the dollar that comes into our space is retained in the Caribbean. In some of our island states, it's as low as 5%. One of us has 50%, and another has 40%. Everyone else is well in the single digits, low single digits, and that's of concern. So this is precisely the objective of the Tourism Supply Side Ministerial Subcommittee. It is a deliberate shift towards building a more integrated tourism economy. And I want to emphasize that. A more integrated tourism economy. Not a tourism industry, not a tourism sector, a tourism economy. One where agriculture, manufacturing, logistics, transportation, the creative industries, and technology are fully connected to tourism demand. In that regard, I am especially pleased to acknowledge the support of the Inter-American Development Bank, whose representatives are here with us this morning, and I just want to acknowledge them, if you will. Thank you very much. For their involvement in this first phase of the initiative. And I actually met with the board of directors in Washington a few weeks ago when we pitched this initiative to them, and their response was immediate as it was effusive. As a result, you will hear more about that engagement between us both. This partnership is critical in moving from concept to execution. It will provide a demand-driven analysis of the goods and services required by the region's tourism sector. In practical terms, we will be able to clearly identify what the tourism industry is purchasing across the Caribbean and assess how much of that demand can be met by regional producers. Additionally, the IDB will support the development of a logistics hub framework using Jamaica as the pilot. This is an important step forward because strengthening supply chain is not only about production, it is also about movement, efficiencies, and regional connectivity. This work, I think, will help to build the IDB's ongoing support, not just for Jamaica's special economic zone agenda, particularly the Caymanas special economic zone, but it will also create a direct bridge between industrial policy, trade facilitation, and tourism demand. What we are doing then is building a practical architecture for regional economic integration, one that connects what we produce, how we move it, and how it is consumed within the tourism economy. This phase of this work is expected to be completed by February 2027. And I want you to bear in mind that this committee is not driven by rhetoric. We're driven by KPIs. We establish targets, we establish timeframes for implementation, and by that, we can be judged. And through that, we will be able to manage our results. So that timeline reflects our commitment to disciplined execution and results-based delivery. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of Caribbean tourism must be defined not only by resilience, as much of it I speak, but by transformation. We must build a tourism sector where Caribbean farmers supply Caribbean hotels, where Caribbean manufacturers produce Caribbean goods for Caribbean visitors, where Caribbean creators shape authentic visitor experiences, and where Caribbean logistics systems ensure efficiency and competitiveness. And I want to add, where Caribbean technology responds to the need for refashioning, reimagining, and redefining tourism experiences, recognizing that that transformation is being made possible through AI and other cognitive systems that we embrace, but that AI and all its technological capacity only supplies 90% at the max of the experiences. 10% belong to us, and that's the point of differentiation that exists. That's what authenticates your destination and gives you the comparative edge. That 10%, which is the human intelligence against the machine intelligence. In doing so, we move clearer to a tourism model that not only generates wealth, but retains that wealth within the Caribbean. I spoke earlier to the percentage of the retention which has to be reversed. There's a whole asymmetry in relation to that. It has to be reversed. This is how we deepen inclusion. This is how we strengthen resilience. And this is how we ensure that tourism becomes a true engine of sustainable development for the region. And let me conclude by reaffirming that this initiative here this morning reflects the best of Caribbean cooperation. Already there are 13 members of the committee, and I expect that to expand. Because this for me, and forgive me for this personal reference, but this for me is what the future of Caribbean integration is about. We've tried many things. Thanks to cricket, we came close. Tourism represents the singular most important element that will define Caribbean integration in the future. It's the only industry over which we have had both competitive and comparative advantage in the region. And it's the only industry that has survived the vicissitudes of time and the disruptions of weather and all the other global disruptions that have come. Tourism has survived, and not only survived, but after has thrived. So let us today make the pivot from a dominant demand-side tourism to an effective supply-side tourism. Thank you.